TopMedTalk. Monty Mython here. Welcome to this podcast from TopMedTalk in association with Macmillan Trust. If you've been diagnosed with cancer, this series of podcasts, released during the COVID crisis of 2020, will help you think about what you can do to help yourself while you wait for treatment.
Nick Majerison here. Welcome to TopMedTalk. And on today's TopMedTalk, we're talking about emotional support and well-being. We're joined by two experts. We have Judith Varconi-Shep, psychologist and psychology lead for West Fit Prehabilitation Programme, and also Chloe Grimmett, behavioural scientist and lead for the West Fit Prehabilitation Programme as well. They're both based in Southampton and they join us today. Thanks for joining us. Good to meet you both.
Yes. Hello, Nick. Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting us.
So, Chloe, I'm going to start with you. Emotional support and well-being. How do we open that conversation?
First and foremost, it's important for people to realise that it's very normal to sit with some very difficult thoughts and feelings at this time. Being diagnosed with cancer, and particularly at the time we're recording during the COVID crisis, is a real period of anxiety and uncertainty.
I'm almost hearing don't feel bad about feeling bad. Judith, do you want to pick up on that?
Yes, so these are two different emotions that most people usually feel, or one of these people might feel. They might feel both of them in different times. And it's important to make a difference between them because they are making us react a little bit differently to the situation. Let's talk about anxiety first. Kind of anxiety is really helpful for us to get into gear and have the energy to do things or have the willingness to do things that we maybe always wanted, to eat a bit healthier or to move around a bit more. So anxiety has this little element that propels people into doing something about the situation and get prepared for the treatment. People might experience bodily sensations, pounding heartbeat, palpitations, butterflies in tummy, needing to go to the toilet more often, sweating, feeling a bit faint, or feeling a bit sick. And it's important to know that these are felt because this is part of that anxiety. We also might have worrying thoughts, weird dreams, and it's also important to know that this is because we are anxious. And we might want to talk to people more. We might want to get frequent reassurance that things will be okay. We want to know what's going to happen. So this is all anxiety, and it's all getting ready to do something about this. Yeah.
So I'm imagining anxiety is the kind of the flight or the fight sensation. You're getting ready for action, and that's recognised, like you say, by the symptoms that you described. But low mood, I hadn't really thought of that. Do you want to explain that a little bit to me?
Although it's a natural reaction for some people, it's not as helpful as when we are anxious because it actually pushes us down. It might make us feel less energetic. We might just not want to deal with this whole thing. Might even feel physically more tired, losing appetite, or even wanting to eat more junk food or more unhealthy food. We might feel that our toilet habits are changing. We might feel unexplained aches or pains. So as you might see, it's not as helpful. It doesn't energize us. It puts us down. There might be worrying thoughts. We might have sad thoughts. We might feel that we are not up for it. We can't really do much about that. So we also might be angry. We might be short with people. And so again, it's important for us to know that this is part of a kind of reaction. So this is not as helpful. It's better to be a little bit more on the more active side. But everything is okay to a certain level. So as long as it is not completely preventing you from living your life, it is okay.
Okay, so first of all, low mood and anxiety are things that we should expect with a difficult diagnosis, and they're not something, obviously they're not pleasant to endure, but they're also, I'm almost hearing maybe a good sign? Is it the case that we can maybe control and measure these emotions somehow, or do you want to explain a little bit more about that? It's interesting what you're saying.
Yeah, so you can do quite a lot of things, actually, that will put you into better mood. So there are simple things. Yes, exercise, for example. Scientifically proven that if you exercise, it will improve your mood. It also will have a good effect on your body, but also will contribute to a better emotional state. It doesn't have to be a rigorous exercise, even if you can walk in a park or in nature. It is also proven that it has a beneficial effect on your mood. And, some people like to meditate. So even breathing exercises, simple breathing exercises can be a form of meditation. And all these techniques have a good calming effect on your body. So again, body and mind and the thoughts go all together, the feelings also. And spending time with friends and family, it's also very good for you, as long as these are not people who usually wind you up.
Yeah.
So, it's also very important that in this particular time when you are coping, you're trying to live with the challenges of what's going to happen on your cancer treatment journey, it's very important that you discuss this with your family and say, I might be out of the ordinary, but it is just for this time. And, I will be back to normal after that, but just give me a little bit of space. And also it's important for ourselves, for us to recognize that this is happening, so be kinder to ourselves a bit.
Yeah, before we bring Chloe into this conversation a little more, I'm just wondering, spending time with friends or family. So at the moment, we're recording during the COVID-19 crisis, and a lot of people are relying on, face-to-face connections over the internet. How effective is that as a substitute for now if you can't see friends or family?
I would say, apart from the physical touches, which is a very important part for our well-being, it is, in an odd way, it seems that these connections now intensify, and maybe we now have more focus, more intensified relationships. So we really seem to care more. We really now seem to value these times more. And, we have the technology around to have these encounters, have these meetings, have this family time organized.
Yeah, I found it very strange myself to end up using my mobile phone like a little television to talk to relatives. It's been bizarre, but it's been fun. So,
yes.
Chloe, I'm going to draw you into this conversation as well here. So individuals can improve their psychological fitness just like we can improve our physical fitness. This is really interesting. Do you want to tell us more about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what Judith said is really important, that people understand that anxiety and low mood are really common. And also it's important for people not to bury those thoughts and to ignore them, which sometimes can be our default because they're difficult feelings to sit with. So actually giving yourself a moment to reflect on those feelings and maybe those physiological sensations that Judith referred to, so the butterflies or the raised heartbeat, and just take a moment to pause, appreciate those thoughts, and then try and move forward positively. But we also know that one of the reasons people are, particularly who are facing a diagnosis and treatment for cancer, one of the reasons they can have these feelings is because of a sense of a loss of control over their lives. Because most of what's being suggested to them comes through the medical teams, and it's all very new and very scary. And one of the things we can do to gain some of that control back is to take part in positive activities. So, for example, if you choose to maybe engage with a bit more exercise or change your diet, that's a way of you taking control of your health and being part of the team who are looking after you. And that can be a really positive thing, to feel like you're part of your healthcare team, you're doing your bit to look after yourself. And it's a question that we often hear from patients at the point they're diagnosed is, okay, well, what can I do? And particularly at the moment, if people's surgeries are being delayed or their treatments are being delayed, it's a really difficult time, and people will understandably feel that loss of control even more so. So engaging in these positive things, so taking time for your mental health, so engaging in some relaxation exercise if that's for you. But some people feel the same kind of sense of relief by taking a walk, as Judith said, or making some changes to their diet. Just taking control of some element of your life and you're improving your physical well-being at the same time.
So let's try some specifics here. With the breathing exercises and diet, I'm particularly intrigued. So breathing exercises, do either of you want to explain how to do some proper breathing to me?
There are many different breathing exercises. I think all are similar in suggesting that we breathe in and breathe out very slowly, but breathing out is longer than breathing in. And it can be just that very simple thing. So, for example, you can breathe into a count of 4 and hold a little bit your breath for about a count of 2 and breathe out to count of 9, for example. So, just very simple thing. And this also has an effect on your nervous system. So it's, again, scientifically proven. It calms your body altogether. So that is a very simple trick. You can do it wherever, even if you just catch yourself that you are a bit more tense, then you should just try it out. The simplest things are the best to start with.
Should we give it a little go now? And
Yes.
I'll try it, and just for the purposes of understanding what this feels like, because it sounds like a good idea. So rather than taking a deep breath in, it sounds to me like I'm going to be taking a deep breath out. Do you want to just give me my instructions again, and I'll give it a go?
Sit in a comfortable position.
Okay.
If you want, you can close your eyes. And just very calmly and slowly, just try to breathe in on the count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it in for 2. 1, 2. And exhale. Breathe out to the count of 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? Just breathe in again. On the count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold in. 1, 2. Breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and then you can continue doing it, and you will get into the rhythm of it, and you can do it, maybe 5, 6 times. I think it's also important that you explore. You just notice what happens. It is useful sometimes to just say, when you start doing this, to say, I'm anxious on a score from 0 to 10, maybe on a score of 8. And when I did it a few times, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, what is my anxiety? And if you don't get it right for the first time, it doesn't matter. It's an exercise. So over time, you will get better and better.
Well, here's what's strange about that exercise is that I've listened to things like this before, and sometimes you don't do the exercise. And if that's the case, you're missing out, because I do feel more centered, more calm. And it's something that we can easily forget, that, isn't it? So I'm glad that we did that exercise. I feel better for it. I'm wondering about diet, though. Chloe, do you want to maybe lead us a little bit on a conversation about diet here?
I think what's really important to consider if you're thinking about changes to your diet is be realistic about how much you can change. And it will be really dependent on where people are at as to how much change they need to make. So some people might have a pretty good diet already. They might already be quite conscious about eating lots of fruit and veg, for example, but maybe they eat quite a lot of processed meat, for example, which is one of the things we know is not very good for us, particularly in relation to certain cancers. So it might be feasible for people to say, okay, well, I'm going to cut out the bacon at the weekend or the sausages in the week. So I think really being realistic about changes that you can make is key.
And from what I understand from what you guys are saying, a large part of this is you being able to take control of your life, set your own diet and eat what you want to.
Okay. Absolutely, yeah.
So let's move to that then. Goal setting. It seems really important. It's something that I like to think that I do reasonably often, set some goals and achieve them. But let's get into this. How can this affect your mood, and what do we need to know? If you don't mind, we'll just start with you and then we'll move to Chloe.
The first question is, what is it that I can do and I'm willing to do from this evening or from tomorrow morning? What is it from all these wonderful things that people, experts, my friends, family suggest I could do? What will work for me? What can I imagine? What can I really do? Because people know themselves, they will very well know, if they think about it in more detail, what is it that will work for them, and try that. So that's the first step.
So short-term goals are actually a lot more useful than maybe I would have thought here. And that's really interesting to me. Chloe, do you want to give us something on goal setting here? Do you want to give us some more detail on this?
Listeners might have heard the exercise podcast or the nutrition podcast and listened to Judith about suggestions for what you can do for psychological health. And suddenly you're overwhelmed with all these different things you can do and changes that you can make. And it can be very tempting to try and do all of them at once, as all of them do have value. But the chances of you being successful in making lots of changes in one go are fairly small. We all know from prior experience, when you set a plan and it doesn't work out, it can be quite demoralizing, particularly if you're already feeling a bit low in mood. So it's really important to be as realistic as you can and setting really small goals to start with that will build up to that bigger ideal that you're working towards. So, for example, I always suggest to people that to choose to start with the thing that they feel most confident that they'll be able to change. So perhaps it's a change to your diet, or increasing your exercise a little bit is the thing that you feel most confident to be able to achieve. And then you have to get really specific about exactly what it is you want to do. So having a broad thought of, I'd like to do more exercise, is a really positive thing. But to actually make it most likely that you'll make those changes is to really drill down to exactly on what day and on what time and exactly what you plan to do. And by thinking about that, you can think about other things going on in your lives, other responsibilities that you have, and really make a plan, much like you would make an appointment to, meet up with a friend or make a doctor's appointment. You make a day and a time that you stick to. And then think a little bit about what do you need to do to prepare for that. So if it's a change in diet, have you got the foods in the house that you need? Or if it's a change to exercise, is it weather dependent? Have you checked what the forecast looks like for Thursday morning, for example, if that's when you want to go? And if you get really specific with those plans, you've got a much better chance of succeeding. And then as you kind of gaining confidence in doing that, you can start to increase the sort of targets that you're going for.
Okay, so let me just recap from what I understand here. Realistic, that's coming through. So when it comes to goal setting, we need to be clear that it's something that we can achieve. I'm interested by the fact that some of these may be short-term goals, and that makes a lot of sense, particularly for the situation that we're talking about here. And then finally, specific changes. That's really interesting as well. So rather than sort of saying broadly, I'm going to be more organized, you have to be very specific and say, I'm going to be specifically organized in that area. That's really interesting. So how do you measure your success with this then? Once you've set a goal, what's the procedure there?
Yeah, I think before you start measuring success, one of the really useful things to ask yourself when you've set your goal is how confident on a scale of 1 to 10 you're going to achieve it.
Right.
And by asking yourself that, if you're scoring anything less than a 7, then you probably need to adapt your goal a little bit. So that can be a way of just cementing a really realistic goal. And then in terms of keeping track, people often find it really useful to record their change in behaviour in some way. And there's all sorts of weird and wonderful ways you can do that now with current technology. Lots of people have watches that measure, or phones which measure how many steps they're taking, for example, or how much exercise they're doing. But you can also have something as simple as a pen and paper. Just draw out a diary of the week, make a note of when you want to do a particular thing and stick it on the fridge, somewhere you're going to see it regularly. And that helps you to remind yourself to keep checking on a daily basis, have you kept up with the thing that you were hoping to do? And then if you slip, you see quite quickly where you've slipped, and that can help motivate you to get back on track.
So supposing I decided to commit to some daily exercise as I'm getting ready for maybe an operation, and I go for an easy win. So I go, well, I'm just going to make sure that I get up and I have a little walk around the garden and then pop back into the house, as an example. and I rate it as maybe a 4 out of 10 difficulty, a 5 out of 10 difficulty. Not something difficult, just something I can do. Is that an easy win, or is that maybe not setting my goals, my targets high enough?
Yeah, I guess when I was talking about the scale, I was thinking about how confident you feel you can do it rather than how difficult that goal is. If you're thinking about how difficult a goal is, I think starting with something you perceive to be a 4 out of 10 is a great place to start, because then you've got a really good chance of meeting that goal. And if you're able to do that for several days in a row or a week, then you'll get a real boost to your confidence. And that will put you in a really good place to then maybe increase that to something that you'd see as a little bit more challenging.
I think I would like to say that it's also important to think about what might go wrong with your plan. So what might come in the way, because things will come in the way. And it is good to think about this ahead as well as think about what are you going to do about that. Because people often beating themselves up that they slipped, we want to eat very healthy and there comes something, a nice tin of cookies or some nice chocolate and we can't resist. Almost, half automated, we reach to that and then we feel so bad. But no, it doesn't work like that. We are human and that's very good because that's learning, that's practice, that's exercise. So when you go to the gym, you won't be able to lift 100 kilos instantly. You have to build it up and some days you will not be as good as other days. And this is just like that with everything. So I think it's absolutely important for people to understand that this is a learning curve. This is an exercise day by day and be kind to yourself. Your personal trainer would not beat you up. So why would you beat yourself up about that? So I think that's very important.
Let's imagine that I've committed to making, first thing in the morning, I'm going to have a gentle walk. It's not a hard goal. It's just one of my first goals that I've set. But maybe one morning, it's raining. I'm not feeling so well because I am preparing for an operation. I don't go out that day. I guess, does it still work if I just carry on with that? So maybe I drop one day, I carry on doing it. I don't beat myself up about it too much. Is that what we're talking about here?
It's much more likely that you are going to stick to it the next day if you don't feel like you are a complete failure just because you didn't go out on that day. So be kind for yourself. I also ask my patients usually, you might be a bit harsh to yourself in general, usually, but now you want yourself and we all want you and your beloved ones want you to be as good as possible. So now, just for this little time that you are going through the treatment and maybe the operation, just be kinder to yourself.
There's one other thing that we haven't touched on when we're setting these goals is thinking about whether we want to do it with somebody else. So whether there's a friend or a family member that you want to do these things with. Now, in the current situation, you're pretty much limited physically to doing that with members of your household, obviously, but, we can do these things virtually as well. So for some people, having a buddy or someone to share these goals with can be really helpful. Other people prefer to do it by themselves, and that's absolutely fine. So it's knowing what's best for you. Sometimes just pledging to somebody what it is that you're hoping to do can be a really powerful thing. And saying you're going to report back to them on how you're getting on, maybe once a week, maybe every few days. And sometimes that can help keep your motivation up to think that I'm going to be reporting back to whoever it is that you've chosen to be your buddy, and you want that to be a positive story. So sometimes having a bit of accountability can help people to stick to the changes that they want to make.
As we leave our listener here, is there anything else that we think we should add to this conversation as they face this difficult period in likely a difficult time as we deal with the COVID-19 crisis? Are there any other thoughts that we should add?
The Macmillan helpline can be a really useful resource for people. So if they're really struggling, particularly if they're feeling isolated, the Macmillan support line can be really helpful and can signpost patients to extra help and support if they need it.
Okay, and that helpline number, of course, will be attached to the show notes of this podcast. It's 0808 808 0000. That's a UK number, of course. 0808 808 0000.
TopMed Talk.
Desiree Chappell here. Thanks for listening to TopMed Talk. If you've enjoyed this podcast and you're a medical professional, Please check us out at TopMedTalk.com for more information. We bring cutting-edge research right to the ears of lifesavers and carers around the world. TopMedTalk.com for more information.